My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 29 years old. Imagine sitting in a quiet lawyer's office, surrounded by the polished smell of leather-bound books and mahogany desks, while your sister, the person you grew up sharing secrets and birthdays with, smiles like nothing is wrong. And then the lawyer clears his throat, looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Your portion of the inheritance has already been claimed." I froze. My stomach churned. My heart pounded in my ears. Claimed? By who? I only had one sibling, my sister, Hannah. And the look on her face, that slight smirk, told me everything before I even needed to ask. But before I reveal how it all spiraled into betrayal, confrontation, and eventually revenge, let me pause here. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more unbelievable family drama stories. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. I grew up believing Hannah was my best friend. We were only 2 years apart, and while we had our differences, she was always more glamorous, more popular, I thought we had an unshakable bond. When our parents passed away unexpectedly last year, their will left us both devastated but also somewhat relieved, because at least we had each other. They left behind a modest but meaningful inheritance: the family home, some savings, and a small collection of antique jewelry from our grandmother. Nothing extravagant, but enough to give us both a safety net. The lawyer explained that everything was to be split evenly. 50-50. Simple. Fair. That's what my parents had always wanted, to make sure we were both taken care of. But as I sat there in that office, I realized Hannah had already gone behind my back. She had liquidated the savings account, tens of thousands of dollars, and even sold several of our grandmother's heirlooms to a private buyer. And she did it all with forged signatures and fake documents. I remember staring at her in disbelief, my voice shaking. "Hannah, what the hell did you do?" She didn't even flinch. She crossed her legs, leaned back in her chair and said, almost casually, "I did what I had to do, Emily. You wouldn't understand." Wouldn't understand. This was our parents' legacy. The money they had saved, the memories tied to every piece of jewelry, and she had treated it like some quick cash grab. I couldn't hold back the anger bubbling inside me. "You stole from me. From us. From Mom and Dad." Her smirk faded, and for a brief second I saw guilt flash across her face. But then, just as quickly, it hardened into arrogance. "I was the one taking care of them while you were busy with your own life. I deserve more. You don't get to play the victim here." Those words cut me like a knife. I had been there too. I had juggled my job, my bills, and still visited, still cared, still loved them. But Hannah twisted the narrative to justify what she had done. The lawyer excused himself to give us privacy. But really, it felt like he just wanted to escape the storm brewing in that room. I sat there, trembling, staring at my sister. This woman who shared my childhood, my blood, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. We left the office in silence, but my mind was screaming. Questions raced through my head. How much had she taken? Was it even legal? Could I get my share back? And most importantly, why would she do this to me? Over the next few weeks, I pieced together the puzzle. Hannah had been drowning in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, even money borrowed from shady people. She was desperate. And instead of coming to me for help, she decided to betray me. I should have confronted her right away, but a part of me hesitated. I wanted to believe she would make it right, that she'd feel guilty enough to confess, to apologize, to pay me back somehow. But then came the real twist. One evening, my phone buzzed. It was Hannah. Her voice was shaking, panicked. "Emily, I need you. Please, they're threatening me. I don't know what to do. You have to help me." I gripped the phone tighter, a mix of fury and grim satisfaction washing over me. The sister who had stolen everything from me was now begging me for help. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about justice, about revenge, about showing her that actions have consequences. Because little did Hannah know, I wasn't the same naive little sister anymore. And this time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The night Hannah called me, I was sitting on the couch scrolling absent-mindedly through my phone. Her name lit up my screen, and for a second, I debated ignoring it. After everything she'd done, I wasn't sure I could stomach hearing her voice again. But curiosity, and maybe a flicker of leftover sisterly concern, made me answer. "Emily, thank God you picked up." Her words tumbled out, fast and frantic. "They're outside my apartment. They know I don't have the money yet. Please, I need your help." Her voice cracked, trembling like a child's. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. Then I remembered the lawyer's office, the smirk, the forged signatures, the betrayal. "Who's outside?" I asked coldly. There was silence, then a muffled sound, like someone pounding on her door. "Loan sharks. I borrowed money I couldn't pay back. Please, Emily. You're the only one I can turn to." My chest tightened, torn between anger and fear. These weren't just banks or credit collectors. These were dangerous people. And Hannah, my sister who had stolen everything from me, was now neck-deep in trouble that could swallow her whole. I clenched my jaw. "And what exactly do you want me to do, Hannah? You already stole my inheritance. Isn't that enough?" She sobbed into the phone. "I'm sorry, okay? I was desperate. I thought I could fix it before you found out, but it spiraled out of control. I'll do anything. Please don't let them hurt me." Her desperation was real. I could hear it in every broken syllable. But so was my rage. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me," I spat. "You had a choice, Hannah, and you chose yourself over family." She sniffled, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But Emily, if you don't help me tonight, I might not make it to tomorrow." That line hit me hard. No matter how much I despised her right then, she was still my sister. Still the girl I shared a bedroom with as kids. The girl I stayed up late with, whispering secrets under the covers. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my keys. When I pulled up outside her apartment, my headlights caught two men leaning against a black SUV. Their faces were shadowed, but I could see the tattoos curling up their necks, the cigarettes glowing in the dark. One of them glanced at me as I parked, his eyes sharp and calculating. I walked quickly inside, my heart hammering. Hannah was sitting on the floor, her mascara smeared, clutching a pillow like it could protect her. "Emily," she gasped, scrambling toward me. Thank you. "Don't." I held up my hand. "I didn't come here for gratitude. I came to hear the truth. All of it. How much do you owe?" She hesitated, biting her lip. That silence was answer enough. "How much?" I demanded. Finally, she whispered, 50,000. My knees nearly buckled. 50? What? Are you insane? Where did you even get that kind of money? "I didn't," she cried. "That's the problem. I borrowed it. And now the interest—" She broke off, sobbing again. I stared at her, my mind spinning. 50,000. That was more than our entire inheritance. No wonder she'd drained it all. And it still wasn't enough. "You've ruined everything, Hannah." My voice shook with fury. "Mom and Dad trusted us with their legacy, and you sold it off like it was pocket change. For what? Designer clothes? Parties? Men?" Her face flushed with shame. I wanted to keep up. Everyone expected me to have this perfect life, and Perfect? I cut her off. "You've destroyed your life, and you dragged me down with you." She fell to her knees, clutching my hands. "Please, Emily. If you don't help me, they'll kill me. I know I don't deserve it, but you're all I have left." For a long moment, I just looked at her. This broken version of the sister I once admired. And I realized something. She wasn't just begging for money, she was begging for her life. I sighed heavily, pulling my hands away. Fine. I'll help you. But not the way you think. Her tear-streaked face lifted with hope. You mean you'll pay them? I shook my head slowly. No, Hannah, I'm not bailing you out. I'm going to make sure you face the consequences. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find a way to save us both in the process. Her smile faltered. Emily, what are you going to do? I glanced at the door, where the shadows of the men loomed through the curtains. My mind was already racing, plotting. What Hannah didn't know was that I had my own plan forming. A plan that would expose the truth, turn the tables, and finally make her realize what betrayal really costs. And it was going to start tonight. I told Hannah I would help, but I didn't mean I'd hand over money. I meant I'd stop the men breathing down her neck, and I'd make sure my sister faced the consequences of what she had done. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, a notebook open, coffee going cold beside me, and sketched out a plan that felt equal parts desperate and ruthless. First, I called Daniel, an old college friend who had worked private security before becoming a PI. If anyone could keep me steady, it was him. When I explained the situation, his face hardened. You can't just walk into their world blind, he said. They'll smell fear. We need evidence, audio, witnesses. If they threaten her, we catch it on tape. That way, the police have no choice but to act. That became the plan. Lure the sharks into revealing themselves, record everything, and let the law bury them. It wouldn't erase Hannah's betrayal, but it might stop her debt from swallowing us both. Still, Hannah insisted I bring cash. If they see we have nothing, they'll kill me, she whispered, her eyes wild. I gave in and stuffed a small envelope with just enough money to look real, but not enough to ruin me if it vanished. The next night, we drove to the meeting spot, a half-abandoned parking lot on the edge of town. A black SUV sat beneath a flickering streetlight, two men leaning against it, their tattoos curling up their necks like warnings. Where's the rest? One of them barked as soon as we approached. I felt my stomach twist, but I forced my voice steady. It's here. I held up the envelope, letting it dangle like bait. The taller man with a chipped tooth reached for it, but I let it slip to the ground. He cursed and bent down, giving Daniel just enough time to angle his phone camera at him. My lapel mic caught every word. You're not getting anything until my sister hears the truth, I said, my voice shaking but firm. The men laughed, cruel and mocking. We don't care about her sob story, the heavier one sneered. We want money. Then say it, I shot back. Say what you're here for. Say what happens if she doesn't pay. For the first time, they hesitated. The thinner man stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the pavement. You think this is a game? He growled. My hand trembled around my phone. No, I think this is a crime, and I've got you on tape. For a second, rage flickered in his eyes, and I thought he might strike me. Then headlights swept across the lot, cutting through the dark. A voice shouted, "Police! Stay where you are!" Two squad cars screeched in, lights flashing. Daniel had called in a tip earlier, just in case, and now it paid off. The men froze, then bolted, but officers were already on them. One hit the ground face first under an officer's tackle, while the other was shoved against the SUV and cuffed. Hannah gasped beside me, her hands flying to her mouth. Relief and terror warred on her face. I stood frozen, my chest heaving, until an officer approached. You called this in? He asked. Daniel stepped forward smoothly. Anonymous tip. We just wanted it stopped before someone got hurt. The officer nodded, then led the men to the cruiser. As they were shoved inside, one of them spat in our direction. This isn't over. A chill ran through me, but I didn't flinch. Yes, it is, I whispered. Back at my apartment, the adrenaline drained from my body, leaving me shaking. Hannah sat hunched over, her mascara smeared, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. You could have died, I said quietly. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. Sorry won't bring back Mom's jewelry. Sorry won't replace the money you stole. But maybe it can start fixing what's broken. Her eyes filled with tears. I'll do whatever you want. I'll tell you everything. Who I sold the pieces to, where the money went. I'll help you get it back. I studied her for a long moment. For the first time in weeks, she sounded sincere. Still, the anger in my chest didn't soften. Then start talking, I said finally. No lies, no excuses. Tell me everything. And for the first time since our parents' will was read, Hannah nodded like she understood that she had no more room to hide. Hannah sat on my couch, her arms wrapped around herself like a child trying to vanish. The streetlight outside cut across her tear-streaked face. For once, the confident, charming sister I knew was gone, replaced by someone fragile, terrified, and remorseful. I poured a glass of water and set it in front of her. She didn't touch it. Her hands twisted in her lap, fingers bending at impossible angles. Start talking, I said, my voice steady. Everything. No lies. No excuses. She swallowed and let out a shuddering breath. It started months before the will was read. I was drowning in debt. Credit cards, loans, everything. I thought if I could just get my hands on the inheritance, I'd fix it. I'd be free. So you stole before we even split it? I asked, my chest tightening. Hannah nodded miserably. The day after the funeral, I took the key from Mom's desk. I sold jewelry to collectors, pawn shops, even to a man who specializes in antiques. They gave me cash fast. I thought I could hide it from you, that you'd never find out. I felt rage bubbling inside. You didn't just steal money, Hannah. You sold pieces of our family, things Mom wanted us to cherish. Tears welled in her eyes. I know, but I was desperate. Then I started gambling, not at tables, but online. I thought I could double the money and pay everything back before you noticed. But I lost. Over and over. My heart sank. You gambled away our inheritance? Yes, she whispered, voice cracking. I ruined it. And then the men I owed. They weren't the kind who'd let me walk away. They threatened me, said they'd come for you if I didn't pay. I didn't know what to do. Her confession left me speechless. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected, but beneath it simmered something else. A sense of power, a resolve forming. If she had dragged me into this mess, I would navigate it. I would reclaim what was ours. Who did you sell the jewelry to? I asked, my voice sharper now, cold with determination. There was Clark, she admitted, swallowing hard. He owns an antique shop downtown. He buys quickly, no questions asked. That's where most of the pieces went. Clark. I'd heard the rumors. A dealer who dealt in rare antiques, often bending the rules. My pulse quickened. If he thought he could profit from our family's history, he was about to learn he was wrong. Any other buyers? I pressed. She hesitated. A few smaller shops, and some private collectors. I gave fake documents to make it seem like they owned the pieces legally. I thought I was clever, but it was all lies. Every signature, every paper. She broke off, tears streaking her face. I swallowed, my mind racing. Each detail Hannah confessed became a breadcrumb I could follow to reclaim our inheritance. But first, we had to deal with Clark. He held the most valuable pieces, and if we didn't act carefully, we'd lose them forever. I'm going to get them back, I said, my voice low but firm. Every last piece. Starting with Clark. She looked at me, hope and fear flickering in her eyes. Do you think we can? I know we can, I said. But we need a plan. Carefully, quietly, and smart. If Clark suspects anything, he'll vanish with the items and we'll be left with nothing. That evening, Daniel arrived. He'd helped us with the men who threatened Hannah and was ready for round 2. You ready to take him on? He asked, sliding a small camera and microphone onto the table. I nodded. We'll record everything, every transaction, every lie. Clark thinks he's untouchable, but he's about to see what happens when you steal from someone who refuses to stay silent. We drove downtown to Clark's shop. The neon sign flickered in the dark, dust lining the window displaying rare trinkets and faded paintings. Clark himself stood behind the counter, silver hair slicked back, an easy smile that didn't reach his eyes. I slid a photo of Grandma's sapphire brooch across the counter. "This belonged to my grandmother," I said. "And it was stolen." Clark's smile didn't falter. "I can't control where merchandise comes from. If you want it back, you can buy it." "Buy it?" I hissed. "You took advantage of my sister when she was desperate. You stole from a family." Daniel subtly clicked record on the hidden camera. Clark's face tightened, the first crack in his polished exterior. "Careful," he warned. "No," I said, standing straighter. "You're playing a dangerous game. And now you've been caught on tape. Every word you say here can be evidence." Clark froze. The tension thickened, and after what felt like hours, he disappeared into the back room. When he returned, the velvet box with the sapphire brooch gleamed in his hands. He slid it across the counter. "One piece," he said coldly. "Consider it goodwill." I snapped it into my bag. "Trust me, I won't come back." Hannah stared, wide-eyed. "You actually did it," she whispered. "This is just the beginning," I said. "Every other piece, every document, we get them all back, one by one." And as we left the shop, I realized something crucial. Hannah had betrayed me, yes, but now she was finally on our side. Together, we would reclaim our family's legacy, and anyone standing in our way would regret it. The sapphire brooch felt heavy in my bag, not because of its size, but because of what it symbolized. A piece of our family history wrestled back from the shadows. But it was only one piece. Clark had given it up to keep himself safe, not because he regretted what he'd done. And I knew there were more. When we got back to my apartment, Hannah collapsed onto the couch. Her face was pale, drained of all color. "You shouldn't have pushed him like that," she whispered. "Clark isn't the type to forgive. If he thinks you're a threat, he'll come after you." "Good," I said, my voice flat. "Let him. If he comes after me, I'll have him exactly where I want him. On record, exposed, just like the others." Daniel smirked, but Hannah flinched. She wasn't used to this version of me, the sister who no longer played nice, who no longer covered her mistakes. Still, she finally spoke. "Clark isn't the only one. There's a man named Ferguson. He's a private collector. I gave him Mom's gold locket, the one with Dad's picture inside." Her voice cracked on the words. That locket had been the one piece Mom wore almost every day. It wasn't just jewelry, it was love in metal form. My stomach tightened. "Where does he live?" "A mansion outside the city," Hannah whispered. "He's wealthy, private, and arrogant. He doesn't like giving things back once they're his." I exchanged a look with Daniel. "Then we don't ask, we take it back." The next night, we drove to Ferguson's estate. The mansion loomed over the hills, its windows glowing faintly in the dark. Daniel had managed to find out he was hosting one of his infamous parties, gatherings where rich collectors flaunted their stolen treasures under the guise of art. We slipped in with the crowd, our formal clothes helping us blend. My heart hammered as we crossed the grand hall, chandeliers sparkling above. Every corner glittered with rare artifacts, statues, and glass cases. And then, on a pedestal in the center of the room, I saw it. Mom's locket. The sight of it nearly stole my breath. I forced myself to stay calm, every muscle taut with restraint. Daniel leaned in. "We need a distraction." Hannah, of all people, stepped forward. "I'll do it." Before I could stop her, she walked toward Ferguson, who was holding court near the piano, his booming laugh echoing through the room. She plastered on a smile, the same charm she had once used to manipulate me, and began flattering him. It worked. Heads turned toward her, and for the first time, I was grateful for Hannah's ability to command attention. Daniel moved in, swiftly disabling the glass case with a small tool he'd brought. I slid the locket into my clutch, my fingers trembling. But then, just as we turned to leave, Ferguson's eyes snapped to me. The laughter died. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, his voice smooth but laced with suspicion. "You came for more than wine, didn't you?" The crowd's chatter dimmed. Hannah froze mid-laugh. I forced a smile. "Just enjoying the art, Mr. Ferguson. Some of these pieces feel familiar." His gaze sharpened. "Familiar? How curious." He stepped closer, his cologne sharp and suffocating. "Perhaps you should tell me why." Daniel subtly shifted, placing himself between us. "We were just leaving," he said evenly. Ferguson smirked, but his eyes never left me. "Take whatever you think you've stolen tonight. It won't matter. Because once you leave, you'll realize I never let go of what's mine." A chill ran through me, but I didn't flinch. I clutched the locket tighter and walked out, Hannah and Daniel flanking me. Back in the car, Hannah's hands shook violently. "He knows, Emily. He'll come after us." "Ferguson doesn't bluff." I stared out the windshield, my pulse still racing. "Let him. He may be powerful, but he's sloppy. He spoke in front of a crowd, threatened us without realizing half a dozen phones were recording nearby. That arrogance will be his downfall." Daniel nodded. "She's right. He thinks money shields him, but the more noise he makes, the harder it'll be to hide. We can use that." Hannah's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in weeks. Trust. "So what now?" she asked softly. I opened the locket in my hand, Dad's tiny photograph staring back at me. "Now," I said, voice firm, "we take back everything they stole, one piece at a time. And we don't stop until the whole inheritance, and every secret tied to it, is back where it belongs." For the first time, Hannah nodded without hesitation. The guilt still weighed heavy on her shoulders, but maybe, just maybe, she was ready to help fix what she had broken. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing truth inside me. Reclaiming the inheritance wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. And I had a sinking feeling the real fight was only beginning. The morning after Ferguson's party, I woke to a sharp knock at my door. My stomach clenched. I knew that sound, urgent and deliberate. Daniel stood in the hall, his jaw tight, holding up a folded newspaper. "Front page," he said grimly. The headline screamed, "Collector claims he was robbed at gala. Family heirloom missing." Beneath it, a grainy photo of me and Hannah leaving the mansion. Ferguson had gone public, painting us as thieves who'd stolen from his private collection. Hannah's face went white. "He's turning it on us." "Exactly," Daniel said. "He's framing you as the criminal, Emily. And he's good at it. He's already filed a police report." My throat tightened. Ferguson wasn't bluffing. He was building a narrative, one where we were the villains, not him. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You took something of mine. Time to pay the price. C. Clark." That night, I couldn't sit still. My apartment felt like a cage, every shadow thick with threat. Hannah paced, chewing her nails raw. "What do we do? If the police believe Ferguson, we'll lose everything, and Clark, he won't stop until he's bled us dry." I stared at Dad's photo inside the locket. His eyes, frozen in that tiny image, reminded me of who I was fighting for. We fight back. But this time, we don't just reclaim what's ours. We expose them. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You mean going public?" "Yes," I said firmly. "If Ferguson can twist the story, so can we. Only difference is, we'll have proof. We'll drag Clark and Ferguson into the light. Their greed, their threats, their crimes, all of it." Hannah hesitated. "And if it doesn't work?" "Then at least the world knows the truth," I said. The next step was dangerous. We knew Clark kept a backroom ledger, a handwritten record of every shady deal. If we got our hands on it, we could tie him to Hannah's illegal sales. Daniel and I watched his shop from across the street, the neon sign buzzing faintly in the dark. "He closes at 10, Daniel whispered. "We'll have 10 minutes before his guard does the final sweep." Hannah sat in the back seat, wringing her hands. "You're crazy," she muttered. "If he catches you—" "He won't," I cut in. "Not this time." When the guard finally stepped out to smoke, we slipped inside. The shop smelled of old wood and dust, shelves stacked with relics that seemed to whisper in the dim light. Daniel moved quickly, picking the lock to the back office. Inside, it didn't take long. A drawer stuffed with ledgers, invoices, and receipts. Names, dates, payments, proof. My pulse pounded as I snapped photos with my phone. But then, a floorboard creaked. "Going somewhere?" Clark's voice sliced through the silence. He stood in the doorway, a pistol glinting in his hand. His smile was thin, cruel. "You really think you can outsmart me, little girl?" Daniel subtly shifted in front of me, shielding me. "Put it down, Clark. You don't want to make this worse." Clark chuckled. "Worse? You've already made it worse. I had a nice arrangement with your sister, and now you've cost me money, respect, clients. Do you know what happens when people think Clark can't control his debts?" His voice dropped to a growl. "They stop fearing me, and that I cannot allow." The air was thick, suffocating. My fingers itched toward my phone, recording every word. "Then maybe they should stop fearing you," I said, my voice trembling but loud. "Because this time, Clark, you're the one on tape. Every threat, every deal, it's all here." I held up my phone. His face twitched. Rage flickered across his features, and for a moment, I thought he'd pull the trigger. But then sirens wailed outside. Daniel smirked. "Back up," he said softly. Clark cursed under his breath, shoving the gun into his jacket. "This isn't over," he spat, before bolting through the back door into the night. By the time the police swept the shop, Clark was gone. But we had the photos of his ledgers, his threats on record, and enough evidence to tie him to Hannah's thefts. Back at my apartment, Hannah collapsed into a chair, shaking. "You should have left me to rot," she whispered. "I dragged you into this, and now Ferguson and Clark both want you destroyed." I sat across from her, clutching the locket. "Maybe, but you're my sister, and family doesn't walk away, even when it hurts. We'll finish this. Together." For the first time, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Not guilt, not fear, but resolve. And as I looked out into the night, I realized the battle had shifted. Clark was on the run, Ferguson was tightening his noose, and the inheritance was still scattered. But for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back, and I had no intention of losing. The evidence against Clark was solid, but he had slipped into the night like a shadow. That left Ferguson, powerful, arrogant, and convinced he could rewrite history with his wealth. If I wanted to end this, I had to bring him down. Not tomorrow, not someday. Tonight. Daniel agreed. "Clark is running scared. Ferguson's the real threat now. Cut off the head and the body collapses." Hannah looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. "You can't fight Ferguson. He has money, connections, lawyers." "Maybe," I said, my jaw set. "But he also has a weakness. His pride. He wants everyone to see him as untouchable. That's exactly what we'll use against him." We staged it carefully. Ferguson was hosting another gathering at his estate, this time to show off his precious collection. He didn't know I'd slipped into his world before. He didn't know we had Clark's ledger and his own threats recorded. Tonight, we'd confront him publicly, in front of the people whose respect he craved. The mansion buzzed with laughter, crystal glasses clinking, the smell of expensive wine filling the air. My heart pounded as I stepped inside with Daniel and Hannah at my side. Ferguson spotted us instantly. His smile faltered, then returned sharper than ever. "Well, well, the thieves return. Did you come to steal again, or just to embarrass yourselves?" The room fell silent, all eyes on us. Perfect. I stepped forward, raising my voice so everyone could hear. "We didn't steal, Ferguson. You did. You preyed on desperate people. You bought stolen goods from my sister, and you threatened us when we tried to take back what was ours." He laughed, the sound booming and false. "Such wild accusations. And where's your proof?" I lifted my phone, projecting Clark S. threats and Ferguson S. own words onto a small portable speaker Daniel had hidden in his pocket. The room filled with Clark S. voice. "Do you know what happens when people think Clark can control his debts?" Followed by Ferguson S. cold warning from the last party. "Take whatever you think you've stolen tonight. It won't matter. I never let go of what's mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came up, recording. Ferguson's mask cracked, fury twisting his features. "You think this will ruin me?" he spat. "I own this city. I can crush you with a phone call." "Do it then," I said, standing tall. "Call whoever you want, but the world is watching now. Every lie, every threat, exposed. You're not untouchable anymore." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then Daniel's backup arrived. 2 detectives we'd tipped off with the evidence. They pushed through the crowd, flashing badges. "Mr. Ferguson, we need you to come with us." Ferguson's face turned crimson. "This is absurd. I won't stand for this." But the cameras were already rolling, the guests whispering, some even cheering. His empire was crumbling, not because of the police, but because his image, the power he valued most, was shattered. As the detectives led him out, his glare burned into me. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes, it is," I whispered. And this time, I knew I was right. In the days that followed, Ferguson's name dominated headlines. The footage spread online like wildfire. The threats, the arrogance, the arrest. Clark, meanwhile, was tracked down with the help of his ledger, his empire of dirty deals unraveling piece by piece. And Hannah? She kept her promise. She testified, admitted her role in the thefts, and worked with investigators to return what she could. It didn't erase the damage, but it was the first real step toward redemption. One by one, the heirlooms trickled back into my hands. The sapphire brooch, the gold locket, Mom's ring. Each piece was tarnished by betrayal, but glimmered with memory. When I placed them back into the family chest, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. One evening, Hannah and I sat together in silence, the chest between us. She traced her fingers over the lid. "I don't deserve forgiveness," she whispered. "Maybe not yet," I said softly. "But you're trying. That's more than you've done in years." She nodded, tears glistening. For the first time, I believed she meant it. Daniel raised his glass across the room. "To survival," he said. I lifted mine. "To family," I replied, my eyes locking with Hannah's. "Even when it nearly breaks you." For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to breathe. The inheritance wasn't just money or jewels. It was memory, legacy, love. And I had fought to protect it, not for wealth, but for what it meant. The war was over. The scars would remain. But I had won.